So thank you everyone for joining us today. We're going to go over a couple of things, mainly how to introduce GPS time tracking to your mobile workforce. And that's if you have GPS tracking in place already, you will probably learn some things to help with your workforce accept what's going on. Or, if you're exploring the option, if you haven't become a ClockShark customer yet, we're going to show you some ways to kind of curb some anxieties that you might have about introducing something like this to your team. So my name's Dwayne. I'll be kind of the host. And then we have Felicia Rush, who is actually our co-host. And she has been at the company almost 2 years. She came from our customer support role. So you may recognize her if you're an existing customer of ClockShark. She's probably helped you out and done an amazing job with it. And she's moved over to our marketing team as kind of the voice for you. So she's taking your feedback and your view on what ClockShark does and implementing it to our product and our marketing. And I'm just our head of sales. Like I just manage the sales monkeys and them calling you guys. And I've been in the industry and actually grew up in construction. I was a project manager at a restoration company for a few years while I was in college. And I still have half of my garage full of tools. It's quite embarrassing that I don't use half of them anymore. So if you're needing something, let me know. So jumping right into it, right? If you're already a customer of ClockShark, you kind of understand some of this stuff, but if you haven't, this is your first view into ClockShark, right? So ClockShark's the leading time tracking and scheduling app built for local construction companies like yours, right? That really want a simpler way to track employee time, run payroll quickly and accurately, and understand their job costs. And so that's what it was built for, right? And we've done a pretty good job at it. We've got multiple reviews on different platforms, right? G2 Crowd's one of the best ones. Capterra, we're all over the place, right? And we've done it by our chat and help system, right? We know that you guys out in the field need as much assistance as possible, especially if you're going job to job, right? So our chat team's here 24/7, phone assistance, email support, anything you need. You have live setup and integration options. And the cool thing is we can get you guys up and running in just a couple of days, if not a couple of hours, depending on how organized you are. The support team and engineering team are traditionally co-located, meaning that they're under the same building, but with everything going on, we're all working from our houses, but we're still very well connected. And so I can message one of our engineers or Felicia can message somebody if there's an issue with anything and they can get it taken care of quickly. Like I mentioned earlier, we have the ability to get you up and running in a couple of days. Our system is actually designed to be as self-onboarding as possible, so you can get into the system and really get set up without any of our assistance. We know that sometimes you guys want to get in, get things going and get off the ground, and you don't want to wait for a phone call or schedule an appointment with us. We've built it to where you can get in there, and the ease of use is amazing. It would help if my mouse was working. And so before we begin, really get into the nuts and bolts of everything, a couple of housekeeping items. We'll send you the recording, right? So if you have to jump off early, if you don't get to see all of the fun stuff, we'll send you the recording. No worries about that. You can submit your questions at any time, right? The bottom right hand of your screen is going to be a little chat box, and you can submit any questions. It's totally fine. We'll get to them throughout the presentation. You don't have to wait till the end. And Felicia is going to be the wonderful individual on the back end kind of answering those. I don't really do that. I'm paying attention to you guys out there. And so if you have any questions coming in, she's going to be the one fielding for you. And like I said before, she came from our support team, so she knows the system a lot better than I do. Absolutely. And then throughout the presentation is going to be what's called poll questions. So they'll launch in front of your face. Just have there'll be a question, just answer it, and it'll let us know how to proceed and how to work with you if you're a customer or when you do become a customer. So today's agenda, jumping right into it, I'll try to keep this meeting to about 30 minutes so you guys can get on back on the road. So we'll talk about the benefits of GPS tracking, common misconceptions about GPS tracking, how to include your workers in the decision. That's a really important one. Common employee questions, how the system actually works, and then tips for creating a new GPS time tracking policy for your company. A lot of those are super important right now with how we're all having to change the way we work and function with the remote employees. Maybe you are a HVAC company or a cleaning company that used to meet at the warehouse or the shop every morning. And now with the social distancing requirements, depending on where you're at, you can't really do that. So somehow you have to send your employees directly to the job sites for their homes. And I'm sure it's causing quite the chaotic mess when it comes to tracking everybody. And so we'll go over some tips and tricks on how to mitigate those. So poll question number 1, what is your role in the company? Right? You can check all that apply. You're the owner, you're a manager, you're an owner operator, you're kind of jack of all trades, right? You're the bookkeeper, accountant person, you're a supervisor, or you're a foreman. Go ahead, Felicia, and hit that button. There we go. Give everyone a couple of minutes to get their answers in. Awesome. Love the participation. Again, cue the awesome hold music. Let's see here. A couple more trickling in.
So close.
Almost there. All right. We have about 10 more seconds, and then we'll go ahead and end that. If you haven't voted yet or haven't chosen your answer, go ahead and do that now. All right. Perfect. Thank you. We've got a lot of managers and a lot of financialists in the business. Great. I mean, we do touch payroll. We do touch accounting with the data that we provide, so that makes a lot of sense. Appreciate the engagement on that. Really do. It helps us help you guys. When you have needs in the business, it helps that you communicate with us, because we don't know what you want if you don't tell us. So the benefits of GPS time tracking, jumping right into it. All right, so knowing the location of your team, customer verification, right? So when they ask or maybe complain that your team's not on site, like how do you provide the information for that? The employee accountability part, and staying up to speed on technology within your industry. That's kind of one of those underlying things that you can lose track of pretty quickly. All right, so the benefits of time tracking, right? So you increase the accountability, right? So what that means is there's accountability factor between you and your employee, right? You need to be able to trust that your employee is going to be where they need to be when they need to be there, and the employee trusts you with that information, right? They prove that they've been there. They prove that the work's been done, right? And you increase productivity because now there's that accountability side. You expect them to be there at 8 o'clock. You expect them to be there for 8 hours or 2 hours, wherever it's scheduled for. And you know that they're going to be there, and they know that it's expected of them. And real-time coordination, right? So you as the admin can jump right into the system, whether it's on your phone or the computer, right, or the web browser. You can see where everyone's at, what they're doing, and how long they've been there, right? So you can communicate with them in real time and understand where they are and what they've been doing. And the accurate payments, right? So that's in regards to payroll, getting your team paid on time, and the employee getting their paycheck on time and accurately. No more of Monday's rechecks or people calling in and complaining that their paycheck's off or their pay stub's wrong, right? This helps make sure that everything is accurate and on time, so it eliminates employee morale issues or any back and forth between the employee and the payroll person or whoever does that. And then the detailed job costing. So with the GPS tracking, you're going to know where people are at each clocking event inside of the system. So you'll get a GPS ping when they switch between tasks on jobs, when they go to different job sites, when they end their day. So you're going to know exactly what was done throughout the day and where it was done at. Poll question number 2. I told you these things are going to fire off pretty quickly. Have you ever used GPS tracking in your business, right? If you're an existing customer, you're already a ClockShark user, maybe you don't have that side enabled for the employee. Or if you're exploring the option, what's bringing you to look at that? Like, so the answers are yes or no, pretty simple. So again, have you ever used GPS tracking in your business? Oh, everyone was quick draw McGraw on that one. I like it. Give a couple more seconds for that one. Almost everyone jumped in right away. She had like a round of applause for when Felicia launches those questions as quick as she does. Awesome. Well, I kind of split down the middle. We've got some companies, some people on this webinar that have, and then we have an equal amount that haven't. And so that's one of the things that ClockShark helps with is implementing something like this with as little as friction as possible. And so what employees should know before introducing GPS time tracking? Super important. With GPS anything, you really need to over communicate with your teams, so it doesn't feel like you're just throwing things at them and you're big brother. So which you should know. Don't assume your workers won't like it, right? it's bad to assume in any situation, but assuming things on behalf of your employees is never a good idea. It's like, hey, I think my employees are going to like the schedule change, and then they don't. Right. So one of the things you want to do is just don't assume anything about them and just over communicate. And don't view it as spying. Right. You're not trying to spy on your employees and ultimately know every movement they make. So you need to communicate that with them, that that's not how you see it and that's not how they should see it. And don't assume it'll be hard to get the employees to accept it. Right? We're in the 21st century. Employees use technology way more than we think they do, even while they're on the job site. You know, a lot of times people are like, I don't want my employee on the phone messing with their phone throughout the day. And I'm like, well, Facebook is a really big thing these days and people are on it all the time. So don't assume it's going to be hard for your employees to accept it. Get their input, right? Before you really start implementing these things or put any policy in place, talk to them about it. During one of your monthly safety meetings or however often you have those safety meetings, get some feedback from them. Ask them what they would think, like how they would benefit from it, and try not to make it a negative thing. You know, talk about today's day and age with the pandemic, everything going on with COVID. You know, it's there to curb the concerns of our customer, all of that. Like, get their feedback on it and really help them in the decision-making process. And know the most common concerns, just the stuff that we're talking about today, right? There's a lot of different resources that we can provide for you and your employees to really understand what those concerns are, how to bring them up, and then how to address them. And then build your case. That's kind of oddly put, but make sure that you have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed for when you do implement this. Make sure you have everything taken care of, all the communication, all the documentation ready to go, and that your team ultimately understands why this is a thing now. Poll question number 3. Like I said, they're coming at you. What's the top reason for you to adopt GPS tracking for your business? Whether you're a customer or not, what would that reason be? Is it safety? Is it accountability? Productivity? Is it accurate payroll? Better job costing? Right? All of those can be a big factor in any business. Right? So again, those answers are safety, accountability, productivity, accurate payroll, or better job costing. So what's the reason why you would adopt GPS tracking in your business? And again, during this whole presentation, you guys can ask questions. Seriously, if you've got something that comes up, just put them right in the chat box and Felicia will get to them.
Yes, please do. I encourage you to ask questions. If it's something specifically about your account, I can always send you an email if I can't get you a thorough answer right now.
100%. Interesting. No one's choosing safety. Accountability. All right, that seems to be the winner there. All right, a couple more seconds to get some last minute answers in there. All right. Yeah, accountability seems to be the winner on that one. You know, on that end, it's interesting that we still have people that feel that they can manipulate the system. It is what it is. When I was in construction, safety was more of a concern for us, understanding where people are at on different job sites, because we worked on unstructurally sound buildings. So understanding where people's locations were big for us. But the accountability side is very important, understanding where people are at and that they're telling the truth on their time cards. That's a big one. So steps to get employees on board with GPS time tracking, right? So we need to get them on board because ultimately that's going to be the decision maker on if this is going to work for you, right? So you got to explain why you're implementing GPS tracking, just like where we left off on the last couple of slides, is build your case. You got to bring them in on the whole decision, get them on board and get them part of it, right? And you got to address any employee concerns. I think the main theme here is communication. You want to make sure that they understand and make sure that they understand that they can ask questions if they want to. Try not to make it a dictatorship because this is something that they may feel is an invasion of privacy, right? It's just something that we'll cover, right? But make sure that you address any of their concerns and debunk any myths that may come up with that and discuss how they'll benefit from it, right? So those are, that's a really big topic because a lot of people, when they come into that, they think they're just being watched. They just think they're big brother, right? So you got to make sure that the reasons why you're implementing this is shown to them, right? So how are they going to benefit from it, right? There's the accountability side that we talked about, that they have proof that they've done the work, that they have proof that they've been there for as long as they've been. It's verification, and that they don't have to handwrite or scribble paper time cards and rush to turn them in on Friday whenever you guys run payroll, and that they have confidence in that they're going to get paid on time and accurately going forward. No more arguments or issues with payroll about things not being paid correctly. I know that was a big pain for me when I was running a team before we had an electronic system in place. It was the rush to make sure our coordinator got all the time cards in, making sure that she knew ahead of time which individuals she was going to have to stop and ask what that letter meant because they couldn't read their handwriting, right? So there's a lot of give and take on this, but make sure the employees understand the benefits that they're going to get from it. And explain the safety reasons. I know that safety wasn't the big one you guys chose, but the safety benefits with that, you're going to know where their locations are, especially with the pandemic that's going on. Understanding the locations of your employees as it relates to job sites is super important in case anything happens, right? If an employee gets hurt on the job and can't communicate or a notification comes in, you know where they're at, so you can go find them. You can verify their location, all of that. And you got to walk them through how the system works, and we can help with that, right? So we've got optional onboarding that will train your employees, and will train you how to train your employees. So you've got to make sure that it's as non-invasive as possible, meaning that you just walk them through how to clock in, how to clock out, what the data looks like, what the time cards. Just make sure that they understand how the whole system works, because people only like surprises that they like. Right? So if you surprise them with something and don't show them how it works, then unfamiliar, they're not going to like it. And then create and explain the training, just like I said. And we can help you with all of that. We can put together a training program for you and your team and really make sure that they're fully on board with it. Utilize our resources. Like the team that Felicia came from, the support team, they're there for you and the employee. The employee can chat in right from the mobile app on their phone and don't have to bug you for everything in the system. And then clarify the new policy. Right? Making sure that you put a policy in place for this type of stuff, that, hey, you need to track, you need to clock in at this time using this app, clock out, all that stuff, right? The purpose statement, the reasons for the new policy, the specification statement, details about what's expected, the implementation statement, right? So all these things need to be in the policy. So it identifies any specific roles of different individuals, what their responsibilities are, what your expectations are of those roles, and when it starts. Like, when does it take effect? Like, when are they ultimately responsible for tracking time in that application? And then just a list of terms, a basic glossary to help them understand what it is different things mean inside of the app, whatever one you use. And again, we can help with all of these. Poll question number 4. There's only 5 of them, so we're over the hump on that one. So number 4, do you have any plan for when you introduce GPS tracking to your employees? Simple yes or no option. Also, thank you. I didn't see Chris Tucker's comment in there, but thank you for that. So keep those questions coming in. When they do come up, feel free to pop them into the Q&A or the chat box, and Felicia will get to those. Oh, look at that nice compliment from Allison. All right. A couple more seconds to get everyone in there. Remember, do you have plans to introduce GPS? Yes or no? Great question from Emily that I will get in there. So Emily's question, Emily House. I hope you're in the construction industry, Emily. That's a great last name for that. The question is this an easy system for employees that have English as their second language to understand? Yes. So we've understood that for a while. Our founders actually came from the industry, and so most of the buttons or the navigations inside of the app are all image based. So we try to limit as much written text or words as possible, but they can input any information they need in any language, right? The notes, how they answer questions, so on and so forth. It's not specifically geared towards only English, so they can put anything they need in there. And we've got companies from 25 plus countries. And so they're all over the world, and they all use the app. And so 90% of everything in the app is all image based. So you don't have to be super concerned about the lack of translation there. But yes, it's definitely geared towards people whose second language is English. And there's some things on the roadmap in the future to help with that even more. Thank you for the participation in that answer, that poll question. And it looks like the majority of you actually don't have a plan. So it's good that you're on this webinar so we can help you with that, right? You can reach out to Felicia, you can reach out to us, you can chat in and say that you're on this webinar and you need some help. And that's if you're an existing customer or not, it doesn't matter. You're still, you're people to us, you're our people, you're here, and we'll help you regardless, right? If you haven't done it, get in and start a 2-week trial. 100% free. You can get it all set up, integrated with whatever you're doing, and really, truly test the system out. All right, so some key takeaways jumping into it. Don't assume your employees will fight you, right? If you communicate correctly and show them the information and the benefits they're going to have from it, they'll probably be more on board with it than you are. And be confident in your reasons, and the real proof as to why, right? People can smell fear. So don't fret. Just be confident in the reasons and why you're doing it, and over communicate with your employees, right? One of the third takeaway there is over communicate. I think when I was reviewing this webinar and really get into the meat of it, that was kind of the theme that I had, that I'd taken from this, is communication. Communication is key when implementing anything new, especially with your mobile workforce. And if it's going to know their whereabouts, you want to make sure that you over communicate with them. And one of the things that I found is using it as an advantage to your selling point to new customers, right? Like right now, like if I had a contractor come to my house, I'd want to know when he or she's going to be there, how many people are going to be there, how long they're going to be there, all that stuff. So that way I can coordinate the necessary actions with my kids, all that stuff. And so customers knowing that you have a system in place that tracks the whereabouts of the employees, it curbs their anxiety about everything that's going on, right? You can show them everything, all the information, right? It helps them have confidence in what you're doing at their house. Some other tips and resources. We've got lots of resources and guides that can help you guys in your business, right? So you can download the guide. It goes into a lot more detail than what I talked about today. It's how to introduce GPS time tracking to your mobile workforce. We'll send it to you so you can download it. It's all accessible for you inside the app. The 6 common misunderstandings of business owners, the 7 important steps, different ways GPS time tracking can be implemented. And there's a few success stories in there as well that you can really relate to and see how other people have done it. And then, of course, change is scary. Doesn't matter who you are. You can be a super tech savvy individual and you're changing to something different. And there's always that fear and friction, but it's always a great time. If you haven't made the leap to a digital business, now is better than ever, right? So we're here to help you. And I mentioned it earlier, if you're already a customer, thank you. We really appreciate you. And we'd love to hear from you. If you haven't taken the leap into technology, or if you're kind of hem-hawing around, just jump into a trial with ClockShark. It's 14 days. It's free. You can get 100% set up and you don't have to pay for anything until it's done, right? You can get integrated if you use QuickBooks or you run payroll through ADP. You can get everything connected with no extra costs. So go ahead and start that trial if you haven't already. And then some question and answer. So we've kind of answered some throughout the webinar here, but if there's any that haven't been answered or anything that hasn't been come up, go ahead and feel free to ask them now. You can unmute yourself, Felicia. You can talk. It's okay.
Oh, whew. Just kidding. I think that's a good question. Cheryl had a question. Is it better to release this to a few employees at a time or just dive in with everyone? What do you think, Dwayne?
That's a great question. We have that come up a lot in that trial period. It honestly depends on your communication with the account team, the sales team, my team, right? If you're doing it by yourself and if you're not wanting any help, the phased approach is typically more successful because then you're not having to manage all of the employees' questions, helping them download the apps. But I highly suggest answer the phone when one of our salespeople calls you. It could be Kevin, could be Vaughn, could be Jasmine, right? Pick up that phone because they're here to help you, right? So it's a lot easier when you have the help from the team. And it's a lot easier to do it all at once when you have all the tools necessary, because then you're not fielding those questions at multiple times during the month, right? A lot of people also they're like, hey, we're going to wait until we're ready to track time for this pay period. Well, that never goes right, because then you have employees that didn't download the app. You have employees that, need to update something or whatever. And we always suggest like getting everything set up a week before you're actually ready to use it. So that way you've got all the kinks worked out. Everyone knows what's going on. We've had time to train them and they're off to the races, right? So it depends on if you want to do it by yourself, which you totally can, or if you want to get everything up and running with help. If you're doing it by yourself, the phased approach is typically less of a burden, but usually there's a little bit of urgency. And so I would suggest answering the phone, replying to one of our emails, and we can get you on a demo. We can get you on a training. And so there's typically 2 paths on that one. Hopefully I answered your question.
We have another really good question too. We use GPS on our trucks. How does this help?
Okay.
I think it goes right alongside.
Well, I'd ask a question too. How often do your employees get out of the truck? Right. Like are your vehicles, do you have multiple people per vehicle? Right. Like in my experience, when I used to work construction, there's usually a guy driving the truck and like 2 to 3 people in the truck. And so it's tough to understand the location of all the employees, and it's tough to understand the time that's tracked for all the employees when there's only one fleet tracker on a truck, right? So think of fleet tracking as just managing the vehicle itself, and the GPS time tracking is managing the employee, right? So if you got multiple people on one truck, the fleet tracker doesn't really do much for that. So we provide the insights on the employee side of things.
Absolutely. And then Peter actually has a question as well. I think this is good. We have employees who travel between different job sites and we charge the travel to the customer.
Okay.
How would we keep track of mileage/travel time per job? Also, what if we have technicians that are traveling from their house? Do you want to answer that?
No, that's perfect. That's literally what we help with.
What we do, yeah.
Yeah, that's like our bread and butter. So the transitioning between jobs is 100% up to you. You can set a task in the system called travel, and you can have that task assigned to the job, right? So you can clock into job 123 Main Street when they leave their house, and the task could be travel, and it automatically logs their time against that task. So you know that John Smith was traveling from his house based on the GPS ping to the job site for 32 minutes. And then when he gets to the job site, he just switches into the job and then starts logging his time against that. In terms of logging the actual mileage, there's a couple of ways we do it. We don't do Google Maps style logging the miles because we don't want to kill your employees' phones. So we give you 2 options. You can put it in the notes field, or you can create what's called a custom question. And when let's say they switch out of travel into the job, you can have it you can prompt them to ask a question or answer a question that says, how many miles did you travel? And it's automatically logged inside of ClockShark in a nice reportable fashion. So a couple of different ways you can do it, but that question's perfect because that's literally our bread and butter. It's what we do.
Yep. And then Chris just respond back to you on every job, but they're all on the same job. If I need to pull someone off, they will travel on a different truck.
Again, our system is employee-based. It's nothing to do with the vehicles.
I think it works, like you said, bread and butter. Yep. Hours here or there from beginning to the end of the day. Yeah, absolutely. I think that the GPS on the truck will help with maybe better, like just knowing the exact route. But as far as knowing where your employee is, you would need it to be on their device because they're not always in the truck, right? Yep. And so I definitely think if you're tracking their hours, then you need to have them using the GPS tracking and not rely on the GPS tracking in the truck.
Yeah, because sometimes we've got employees or companies that have a company vehicle per employee, right? And so the GPS whereabouts isn't a main concern, but they need a better way to just track the time because they're trying to do job costing. They're trying to understand how much time is being spent doing cleanup or install or estimating on the specific job so they can bill their hours correctly, right? So there's that added layer of ability that ClockShark provides outside of just the GPS stuff.
Correct. Yep. So you're just going to get more bang for your buck, so to speak. And 100%. You can always use them to compare, right? You could see what the GPS and then what the employees today says.
Yeah. There were some times where I had to do that as a manager where there was the GPS on the vehicle and then there was a timesheet that came in and it was like, the truck says you were here for this long, but your timesheet says this, right? So there's another added layer of accountability when you've got both systems running side by side.
Correct. Yep. And you got it, Chris. That is exactly where job costing comes into play. And with ClockShark, you could set it up where you can differentiate between when they were traveling and then when they were on the job. So you can charge differently for when they were on the travel time and versus when they were on the job site. And you can also have reports that break it down based on which task or which job they were working on. So you just get a better look into where everybody was at.
Correct.
For the day.
Awesome. Any more questions? Keep them coming. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay. Well, I appreciate everyone's engagement. Answering the questions was great. And the questions coming in, perfect. Really appreciate it. Good question, Julie. Can you track mileage between one facility to another? The mileage input for ClockShark is free form. So we don't hold anyone to any specific location. It's an input from the employee, right? So if you clock time in the travel task to 123 Main Street, you can have it prompt them to answer a question that says, it'll pop up on their phone that says, how many miles did you travel? And they'll put it in, right? So it doesn't do like Google Maps where it's tracking their actual location turn by turn. So the mileage itself is total free form for them. You can have them put in notes, or you can have them put in a custom clock out question.
Yeah, clock out questions would handle that nicely. I have some admins that even have the employee take a picture of the speedometer before and after their arrival. And that works for a lot of people out there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause with ClockShark, right, something we didn't really get into a whole lot of the software itself. That's what the trials are for. But you can have attachments, pictures, right? So you can take a picture live time of whatever you're doing and have it attached directly to that time card for the day, that time segment. So if you've got a picture that you take for travel time, when you go look at their time card at the end of the week or the day, it'll show that attachment of the picture of the speedometer right there, or odometer. Any other questions? Told you I try to keep the 30 minutes. Some people say I talk too fast, but all right. Well, if anyone needs help, or if there's any other information that you need, you can call us. You can call us 1-800-828-0689. We are located in, I would say, beautiful Northern California, but we're on fire all the time. So you can call it smoky Northern California right now, and in a little town called Chico. So we're about an hour and a half north of Sacramento. So that's West Coast. So we operate on Pacific Standard Time, but we're here all hours of the day. You can go to our website, ClockShark.com. You can email us at hello@ClockShark. You can visit us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all the socials. And Felicia has a huge part in communication on that. So you'd probably be talking to her.
Yep.
Multiple ways to find us.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I appreciate everyone coming today. Love the engagement. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to reach out.
Bye. Thank you so much.